Imagine holding a notebook so rare, so coveted, that its pages have been touched by kings, stolen by thieves, and hidden away for centuries. This isn't just any book, it's one of Leonardo da Vinci's most mysterious creations, the Codex Leicester. A masterpiece of science, art, and sheer genius, filled with ideas so ahead of their time they still baffle experts today. But here's the twist. Hidden within its weathered pages are secrets Leonardo never meant for the world to see: sketches of impossible machines, theories about the cosmos, even cryptic notes that hint at discoveries lost to history. What if this notebook isn't just a relic of the past, but a puzzle waiting to be solved? Leonardo da Vinci was more than an artist, he was a man obsessed with unraveling the secrets of the universe. The Codex Leicester, named after the nobleman who once owned it, is his most personal and enigmatic work. Unlike his famous paintings, this notebook wasn't meant for display. It was his private playground, where he scribbled down everything from the movement of water to the nature of moonlight, often in mirror writing, as if guarding his thoughts from prying eyes. But why? Was he protecting revolutionary ideas, or was there something even more extraordinary hidden in these pages? The deeper you look, the more questions arise. Why did he devote so much space to the study of fossils, claiming they were evidence of a world much older than anyone believed? And what about those strange, almost prophetic diagrams of devices that wouldn't be invented for hundreds of years? This isn't just a story about a notebook, it's a journey into the mind of one of history's greatest thinkers. The Codex Leicester isn't merely a collection of notes, it's a portal into Leonardo's world, where science and art collide in ways that still feel revolutionary. Over the next few minutes, we'll uncover the hidden layers of this extraordinary document, from its scandalous history to the startling insights it reveals about our world. You'll see why this manuscript sold for a record-breaking $30 million, and why its true value might be far greater than anyone realizes. So sit tight, because what you're about to discover might just change the way you see history itself. The Codex Leicester isn't just another notebook from da Vinci's era. It's a tangible piece of the Renaissance genius's mind, a collection of 72 delicate pages filled with his unmistakable mirror writing and intricate sketches. Measuring roughly 11.5 inches by 8 inches, each sheet is made of linen paper, hand-stitched into a single volume that feels almost intimate to hold. Unlike his other notebooks, which often focused on specific subjects like anatomy or engineering, this one reads like a whirlwind tour of Leonardo's curiosity, jumping from the physics of water to the glow of the moon, from geological theories to designs for futuristic machines. But what truly sets it apart is how personal it feels. While the Codex Atlanticus or the Madrid Codices were more systematic, the Leicester is raw, unfiltered Da Vinci, as if we're peeking over his shoulder as he thinks aloud. Then there's the story of its modern journey. In 1994, at a Christie's auction, this very notebook shattered records when Bill Gates purchased it for a staggering $30,008,000, making it, at the time, the most expensive book ever sold. Gates didn't lock it away in some private vault, though. He's loaned it to museums worldwide, digitized its pages for the public, and even used it as a screensaver for Windows 95, ensuring Da Vinci's ideas reach as many eyes as possible. Yet, despite its fame, the Codex Leicester remains elusive. It's displayed only sporadically, under strict climate-controlled conditions, as if the world is still catching up to the brilliance it contains. Why such reverence? Because this isn't just a relic, it's a conversation across 500 years. Da Vinci's observations about swirling water predate modern fluid dynamics by centuries. His musings on why fossils appear on mountaintops challenged biblical timelines long before geology existed as a science. Even his sketches of diving suits and hydraulic pumps feel eerily prescient. Holding the Codex Leicester, you're not just seeing notes, you're witnessing a mind so far ahead of its time that we're still deciphering its secrets. And that's what makes it priceless. Not the price tag, not the fame, but the humbling realization that some ideas are timeless. To understand why Leonardo da Vinci filled the Codex Leicester with such groundbreaking ideas, we need to step into the restless curiosity that drove him. Water fascinated him like nothing else, not just as an artist capturing its shimmering surface, but as a scientist obsessed with its hidden patterns. Page after page, He sketched whirlpools, traced currents, and theorized about how rivers carve landscapes over time. These weren't idle doodles, they were meticulous studies, attempting to decode what he called the visible mechanics of nature. He saw water as a living force, a teacher holding secrets about motion, energy, and even the shape of the earth itself. Centuries before modern hydrology, Leonardo was reverse engineering the world's most elemental substance. But water was just the beginning. The Codex reveals another obsession: fossils. In an age where most believed seashells found on mountaintops were leftovers from Noah's flood, Leonardo dared to question dogma. He argued these were ancient remnants of long-vanished oceans, evidence of a planet constantly reshaping itself. His detailed sketches of layered rock formations and shellfish imprints read like an early draft of geological theory, an astonishing leap at a time when science and superstition still blurred. Then there's his celestial musings. Leonardo turned his gaze skyward, theorizing why the moon glowed with what he called borrowed light, speculating about reflections between planets, and even sketching devices to study lunar shadows. His astronomy notes feel disarmingly prescient, as if he were piecing together cosmic truths without telescopes or modern math. All these ideas spill across the Codex in his trademark mirror writing backward script that reads correctly only when held to a mirror. Some say he used it to guard his ideas from rivals or the church. Others argue it was simply easier for his left-handed grip. But perhaps the truth is more profound. Leonardo's mind worked differently, seeing the world in reverse before setting it right. That same originality pulses through every page of the Codex, where he didn't just record observations, he reimagined reality itself. This was the Renaissance spirit incarnate, a hunger to question, to dissect, to see beyond the obvious. In an era where artists dueled with brushes and thinkers raced to unlock nature's laws, the Codex Leicester was Leonardo's private arena, a place where he could outthink everyone, even time itself. After Leonardo da Vinci's death in 1519, the Codex Leicester didn't just gather dust on a shelf, it began a 500-year odyssey across Europe, passing through the hands of kings, scholars, and tycoons. The notebook likely stayed in his studio in France, where he spent his final years, before disappearing into the private collections of Italian nobility. For nearly 2 centuries, its whereabouts were a mystery until the 1700s, when an English aristocrat with a passion for Renaissance art tracked it down. Thomas Coke, the first Earl of Leicester, purchased the manuscript in 1716, giving it the name we know today. But even then, its survival wasn't guaranteed. At one point, the Codex was nearly used as kindling by a servant who mistook it for an old ledger, a chilling reminder of how easily genius can be lost to carelessness. The 19th century brought new dangers. As Napoleon's armies swept through Europe, libraries and private collections were ransacked or destroyed. The Codex Leicester, however, dodged catastrophe by being tucked away in the Earl's country estate, Holkham Hall. There it remained, largely forgotten by the public, until the 20th century thrust it back into the spotlight. In 1980, American industrialist and art collector Armand Hammer, a man as colorful as his name suggests, acquired the manuscript for a then-record sum. Hammer, known for his dealings with Soviet leaders and flair for the dramatic, treated the Codex like a celebrity, touring it worldwide in bulletproof cases and even displaying it alongside his own portrait painted by Leonardo's contemporary, Michelangelo. But the most famous chapter in the Codex's modern saga came in 1994, when Bill Gates outbid museums and universities at Christie's auction house. His purchase wasn't just a flex of wealth, it was a statement about the enduring value of ideas. Unlike previous owners who treated it as a trophy, Gates made the Codex accessible. He had its pages scanned and released as interactive software, turning Da Vinci's private musings into a global resource. Today, the manuscript travels under tight security for rare exhibitions. Its pages still crisp despite centuries of handling, wars, and close calls with oblivion. What's astonishing isn't just that the Codex survived, it's how often it flirted with destruction. From nearly being burned as scrap paper to escaping wartime bombings, this fragile notebook has outlived empires. Each owner, from an 18th century earl to a tech billionaire, became a temporary custodian of Leonardo's legacy, proving that great ideas don't belong to any one person. They're sparks that leap across centuries, waiting for the next curious mind to fan them into flame. Opening the Codex Leicester feels like stepping into a hall of mirrors, not because of its illustrations, but because of the writing itself. Leonardo da Vinci's notes cascade across the pages in elegant, backward script, a puzzle that has challenged scholars for centuries. Reading it requires holding the text up to a mirror, where the letters suddenly snap into focus. This wasn't some casual quirk, it was a deliberate choice, one that has fueled endless debate. Was he guarding his ideas from prying eyes, or was there something deeper at play? One popular theory points to practicality. Leonardo was left-handed, and mirror writing may have simply been more natural for him, a way to avoid smudging ink as his hand moved across the page. Others argue it was a safeguard against intellectual theft, especially when his ideas ventured into controversial territory. Imagine the risk of sketching diving suits or flying machines in an era when the church held sway over what could be studied or even imagined. Writing backward could have been his encryption, a way to keep heretical thoughts just out of reach. But some historians propose a more poetic explanation, that Leonardo's mirror writing reflected his very way of thinking. He often approached problems from unconventional angles, sketching bones from multiple perspectives or studying shadows to understand light. Perhaps the backward script was a physical manifestation of his mind's ability to invert, re-examine, and reimagine the world. Decoding it today is no small feat. Early scholars painstakingly transcribed pages by hand, squinting at mirrors for hours. Now, digital tools have revolutionized the process. High-resolution scans and AI algorithms can instantly flip the text, revealing Leonardo's words with crisp clarity. These technologies have uncovered subtle corrections and hidden marginalia notes within notes that suggest even he sometimes struggled with his own system. Yet the mystery lingers. Why did he switch between mirror writing and standard script in other notebooks? Why did some pages remain unfinished, as if he abandoned the cipher mid-thought? The answers might lie not in the how, but the why. For Leonardo, the act of writing backward may have been more than a technique, it was a ritual, a way of slowing down, of seeing the world differently. And in that space between the lines, his genius found room to roam. Leonardo da Vinci's fascination with water wasn't just artistic, it was scientific obsession on full display in the Codex Leicester. His pages overflow with studies of swirling eddies, cascading waterfalls, and the relentless march of rivers carving through stone. While his contemporaries saw water as a mere element, Leonardo recognized it as nature's ultimate teacher, a force that held clues to the very mechanics of the universe. With nothing more than ink, paper, and an insatiable curiosity, he sketched wave formations with such precision that modern fluid dynamicists still marvel at their accuracy. One particularly striking diagram shows intersecting ripples, their concentric circles perfectly capturing how waves propagate, a concept formalized mathematically only centuries later. But Leonardo went beyond observation. He theorized about erosion, proposing that valleys were shaped by rivers over immense stretches of time, a radical idea when most believed Earth's features were fixed since creation. His sketches of layered rock formations even hinted at what we now call sedimentary deposition, centuries before geology became a formal science. Perhaps most astonishing are his notes on turbulence. Without advanced instruments, he described how water behaves when obstructed, detailing the chaotic interplay of currents that physicists today still struggle to model perfectly. The Codex reveals his method, a blend of relentless observation and daring extrapolation. He'd toss pebbles into ponds to study ripple patterns, then scale up those principles to explain ocean currents. He imagined water as a living thing, writing that it seeks its own level as the soul seeks heaven, a poetic insight that nonetheless anticipated the laws of hydrostatics. Modern scientists have tested his theories using computer simulations, finding eerie alignments with his 500-year-old scribbles. Yet for all his prescience, Leonardo's tools were laughably simple. He had no way to measure velocity or pressure, no calculus to model flow. Instead, he relied on analogies, comparing water to air, hair, even the human circulatory system. This cross-disciplinary thinking let him intuit truths that would take generations to prove. When he sketched a whirlpool spiral, he wasn't just drawing water, he was decoding the same patterns found in galaxies and hurricanes, a unity of nature we're still uncovering today. What makes these pages so extraordinary isn't just their accuracy, but their humility. Leonardo frequently corrected himself, scratching out failed hypotheses, proving even geniuses revise their work. His water studies were a dialogue with nature, one where he listened as much as he theorized. In an age of dogma, he embraced uncertainty, writing in the Codex's margins. The experiment must be repeated many times before any conclusion can be drawn. That patience, that willingness to be wrong, might be his greatest lesson, not just about water, but about how to truly see the world. Leonardo da Vinci's pages in the Codex Leicester crackle with geological insights so revolutionary, they threatened to rewrite history itself. At a time when most scholars explained mountain ranges as remnants of Noah's flood, Leonardo saw something far more profound: evidence of an ancient Earth, slowly sculpted by forces still at work. His sketches of layered rock formations reveal an uncanny understanding of stratification, noting how different minerals settled over eons. One particularly striking diagram shows jagged peaks with sediments tilted at sharp angles, a visual argument that these mountains hadn't been deposited by water, but thrust upward by some colossal underground force. Centuries before plate tectonics was conceived, Leonardo was piecing together clues that the Earth's crust wasn't static, but alive with movement. His fossil studies were even more heretical. When fishermen brought him seashells found high in the Apennines, his contemporaries dismissed them as oddities washed ashore during the Great Flood. But Leonardo spotted inconsistencies. If the deluge carried these shells 300 miles inland, he wrote, why are they still clustered in layers, not scattered randomly? And why do we find them paired, some still hinged together as they were in life? His meticulous drawings of these fossils, complete with growth rings and delicate spines, weren't just artistic exercises, they were courtroom-worthy evidence against the biblical timeline. He even noted how certain shells matched living species in the Mediterranean, suggesting these mountains had once been ocean floor. The Codex captures his frustration with scholars who refuse to see. They claim the Earth's bones, these stones, were shaped in a single year. He scrawled in one margin, while ignoring rivers that carve valleys over centuries. His proto-scientific method shines through, observing erosion in alpine streams, then extrapolating how entire ranges could wear down over millennia. He theorized that mountains were constantly being born and weathered away in a grand cycle, an idea echoing modern geomorphology. What makes these musings extraordinary isn't just their accuracy, but their loneliness. Without peer review or textbooks, Leonardo stood against centuries of dogma, armed only with a notebook and relentless logic. When he sketched a river delta's sediment layers, labeling them like pages in a history book, he wasn't just drawing rocks, he was inventing a new way to read the Earth's autobiography. The Codex Leicester preserves these quiet acts of rebellion, where a man with no formal training outthought an entire era by daring to trust his eyes over tradition. Leonardo da Vinci's astronomy notes in the Codex Leicester reveal a mind grappling with celestial mysteries no telescope could yet solve. Among his most startling insights was a theory about the moon's faint glow, that eerie illumination visible on its dark side during a crescent phase. While medieval astronomers often dismissed this as the moon's own inherent light or attributed it to vague celestial forces, Leonardo proposed something radically different. He suggested this glow came from sunlight reflecting off Earth's oceans and back onto the lunar surface, a phenomenon we now know as Earthshine. Imagine the audacity of this idea in an era when many still believed the moon was a perfect, luminous sphere untouched by the imperfections of earthly physics. His reasoning was meticulous. He observed how sunlight bouncing off water could brighten a dim room, then scaled this principle to cosmic proportions. Sketching angular diagrams, he traced rays of light from the sun to the Earth's seas, then onward to the moon, calculating how reflections might interact across vast distances. These weren't just poetic musings, they were proto-scientific models, attempting to quantify what the naked eye could barely perceive. Centuries before astronauts photographed the pale blue dot from space, Leonardo visualized our planet as a mirror in the void, its oceans whispering secrets to the moon. The contrast with his contemporaries couldn't be sharper. Most medieval astronomers clung to Aristotelian ideas of celestial perfection, where heavenly bodies moved in unchanging, crystalline spheres. Lunar eclipses were often explained through folklore or divine intervention, not mechanics. Yet here was Leonardo, a man with no formal training in astronomy, dismantling superstitions with nothing but a keen eye and relentless logic. His notes even corrected common misconceptions, like the belief that the moon's glow varied due to atmospheric conditions on the moon itself. Instead, he posited it was Earth's weather cloud cover over oceans that altered the reflection's intensity, a nuance modern science confirms. What makes these pages extraordinary isn't just their accuracy, but their humility. Leonardo admitted gaps in his knowledge, scribbling questions like, "Why is the glow sometimes bluer?" A nod to the scattering of light we now call Rayleigh scattering. He tested his theories by comparing moonlight on different nights, noting how its glow shifted after storms or during calm seas. This empirical approach, rare for his time, turned the Codex into a laboratory where hypotheses were forged and refined. Today, we take Earthshine for granted, measured by satellites and cited in textbooks. But in Leonardo's hands, it was a revolutionary act, a reminder that truth often hides in the faintest glimmers, waiting for someone bold enough to chase them across the dark. Leonardo da Vinci's sketches for underwater breathing apparatuses in the Codex Leicester reveal a mind unshackled by the limits of his time. Among his most startling designs is a crude but functional diving suit, conceived decades before the first recorded attempts at underwater exploration. His notes describe a leather outfit with a bell-shaped helmet connected to floating air tubes, essentially an early rebreather system. But what makes this invention extraordinary isn't just its ingenuity. It's the problem he aimed to solve. Venice, a city perpetually at war with the sea, needed ways to sabotage enemy ships from below. Leonardo envisioned divers sneaking beneath hulls to plant explosive devices, a tactic centuries ahead of naval warfare. His sketches even included details like weighted shoes for stability and a pouch for collecting salvage, proving these weren't flights of fancy, but blueprints for real-world use. Then there are his hydraulic pumps, designed to harness water's power with elegant efficiency. One particularly ingenious sketch shows a reciprocating pump with dual chambers and rotating valves, a design so effective it's still echoed in modern machinery. He understood fluid dynamics intuitively, noting how water resisted sudden direction changes and how air pockets disrupted flow. These weren't just theoretical musings, they were solutions for draining swamps, irrigating fields, or even powering mills. His notes mention specific materials, oiled leather for gaskets, bronze for gears, revealing a pragmatist who considered cost and durability alongside innovation. But perhaps his most audacious engineering feats were his bridge designs, especially the single-span arched crossing intended to span the Golden Horn in Constantinople. Unlike traditional bridges requiring multiple piers, Leonardo's version used a parabolic arch distributing weight evenly, allowing ships to pass unimpeded below. His calculations, scrawled beside sketches, show an understanding of load-bearing principles that wouldn't be formalized until the Industrial Revolution. Modern engineers have tested scaled-down versions using period-appropriate materials, finding his designs not just viable, but remarkably stable. What unites these inventions is their grounded brilliance. Leonardo didn't dream up machines for spectacle. He solved concrete problems with an artisan's eye for detail. His diving suit accounts for how joints stiffen underwater. His pumps account for sediment-clogging mechanisms. Even his famous ideal city plans in the Codex, with tiered streets separating sewage from foot traffic, show a mind attuned to livability as much as grandeur. The true marvel isn't that he imagined flying machines or submarines, it's that he engineered them with the physics of his era, using materials at hand. When he sketched a crane powered by men walking in treadwheels, he calculated gear ratios to maximize lifting force. When he designed water screws for irrigation, he adjusted blade angles to minimize labor. This wasn't just futuristic thinking, it was future-proof thinking, rooted in the practical realities of wood, rope, and human sweat. That's why centuries later, his notebooks still feel less like relics and more like open invitations to build, to test, to push further. Turn to any page of the Codex Leicester, and you'll find more than just equations and observations tucked between precise diagrams of water currents and lunar phases or sudden bursts of artistry. Faces emerge in profile, their lines quick but expressive, as if Leonardo's hand couldn't resist capturing a passing thought. Delicate vines curl around the margins, their leaves rendered with the same botanical accuracy he applied to his studies of oak trees. Then there are the machine's gears, pulleys, and levers sketched so fluidly they seem to animate before your eyes. These aren't just doodles, they're windows into how his mind worked, where science and art weren't separate disciplines, but two sides of the same relentless curiosity. Take one particular margin near his notes on river erosion. Amid calculations about sediment flow, a man's face appears, his brow furrowed in concentration. It's not a finished portrait, just a few deft strokes, but the resemblance to his famous sketches of aging men is uncanny. Was this a local farmer who inspired him, or a character from some unwritten story? Nearby, a cluster of flowers blooms beside a diagram of hydraulic pumps, their petals drawn with such precision they could belong in a herbalist's manual. For Leonardo, beauty and function were inseparable. Even his engineering sketches have a rhythmic grace, as if each gear were part of a larger, almost musical composition. But some marginalia hint at grander visions. On a page discussing reflectors for amplifying light, a tiny sketch shows what looks like a multi-lens telescope, its design eerily similar to instruments developed a century later. Another shows a helical screw hovering above water, an idea that would later evolve into his designs for aerial screws, early ancestors of the helicopter. These weren't idle distractions, they were seeds of projects that outgrew the notebook's edges. The most haunting sketches are the unfinished ones. A horse's leg, half drawn, dissolves into a flurry of corrective lines. A bridge arch starts strong but trails off, as if he abandoned it mid-thought. These fragments remind us that the Codex wasn't a polished manuscript, but a living workspace, where ideas competed for space and attention. Some blossomed into full-fledged inventions, others remained ghosts on the page, waiting for future minds to revive them. What's striking is how these flourishes defy categorization. A study of whirlpools might dissolve into a caricature of a roaring monster, as if the swirling water suggested a face. A calculation about the moon's distance from Earth could sprout wings, morphing into a flying machine. This fluidity between disciplines is the essence of Leonardo's genius, the refusal to compartmentalize imagination. Every doodle, no matter how small, was a thread in the larger tapestry of his curiosity, proving that even his margins held revelations. Among the pristine sketches and neatly penned notes in the Codex Leicester lie puzzling Anomalies pages where ink has been aggressively scraped away, leaving ghostly impressions of vanished words. Some folios bear entire sections obscured by deliberate strokes, as if Leonardo or someone else wanted certain ideas erased from history. Then there are the diagrams that trail off into ambiguity, their lines abruptly stopping or morphing into indecipherable squiggles. Were these moments of self-censorship, clumsy corrections, or something more enigmatic? Take Folio 42, where a study of lunar reflection suddenly dissolves into a smudged void. Infrared scans reveal traces of original text beneath the abrasion's words about the eye of the observer, and deceptions of light, phrases that might have challenged optical theories of the time. Nearby, a half-finished sketch shows a peculiar device resembling a camera obscura, its lens partially scratched out. Some scholars argue these alterations reflect Leonardo's perfectionism, his habit of revising work mid-thought. Others suspect darker motives. In an era when the Church prosecuted heresy, even speculative science could be dangerous. Notes on fossils or earthshine might be tolerated, but what if he ventured into optics that undermined religious iconography or anatomy that contradicted scripture? The mystery deepens with folios like 89, where a seemingly innocuous diagram of river currents is marred by intentional blotting. Modern multispectral imaging exposes remnants of mirrored writing beneath, mentioning subterranean fires and the breath of mountains, phrases that align with volcanic theories Leonardo explored in private. Was this self-censorship, or did a later owner, perhaps fearing controversy, sanitize the manuscript? The Codex passed through many hands, including aristocrats with ties to the Vatican. Even more tantalizing are the pages where Leonardo's writing shifts abruptly from Italian to coded symbols, a cipher he used sparingly in other notebooks. One such section near the end of the Codex contains a sequence of geometric shapes interspersed with numbers, resembling an alchemical formula or perhaps instructions for constructing something never built. Cryptographers have spent decades attempting to crack it, with theories ranging from a hidden recipe for metal alloys to coordinates for a lost site of experimentation. The debates among scholars are as layered as the manuscript itself. Some insist these obscured passages are simply workshop accidents, spilled ink hastily wiped away, or trial calculations discarded. But the precision of the erasures suggests intent. X-ray fluorescence scans show identical ink chemistry in both the visible text and the scratched sections, implying the changes were made shortly after the original writing, possibly by Leonardo himself. What's undeniable is the pattern. The most heavily redacted pages often cluster around topics that would have been contentious geological time, the nature of light, mechanical inventions with military potential. It's as if the Codex holds two parallel narratives: the public brilliance of a Renaissance polymath, and the private hesitations of a man navigating an era where curiosity could be criminal. These contested folios don't just obscure words, they blur the line between genius and caution, leaving us to wonder how much more Leonardo might have revealed if history had been kinder to bold ideas. Hidden within the Codex Leicester's pages are geometric puzzles that reveal Leonardo da Vinci's lifelong fascination with proportion, particularly the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship so perfect it seems to echo through nature itself. Nestled between his studies of water currents and lunar phases, you'll find precise compass-drawn circles, intersecting lines forming pentagrams, and cascading rectangles whose dimensions align with this divine proportion. These aren't idle exercises, they're glimpses into how Leonardo saw harmony woven into the fabric of reality. One folio shows a branching river delta sketched alongside a geometric grid, as if he were decoding the same rhythmic patterns in nature's chaos and human design. The golden ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1, appears everywhere in Leonardo's world, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the proportions of the human body. In the Codex, he explores it with the rigor of a mathematician and the wonder of an artist. One diagram divides a rectangle into ever smaller golden sections, mirroring the self-replicating ratios found in plant growth or galaxy arms. Another links the ratio to architectural stability, noting how structures adhering to these proportions withstand stress more elegantly. But what makes these sketches extraordinary is their context. They're not isolated studies, but integrated into his broader observations. When he measures the angles of branching streams or the spacing of tree rings, he's searching for the same mathematical fingerprints. This obsession reaches its zenith in his famous Vitruvian Man, where the human form becomes a living embodiment of geometric perfection. The Codex Leicester acts as the laboratory for these ideas. It's where he worked out the proportional relationships later immortalized in that iconic drawing. Pages filled with fractioned circles and segmented lines suggest he was reverse engineering the ratios described by the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius, testing them against real-world measurements of muscle and bone. Yet Leonardo took the golden ratio further than his predecessors. While others applied it statically to buildings or paintings, he saw it as a dynamic force. In the Codex, he speculates that the ratio governs fluid dynamics, noting how whirlpools contract in golden spirals or how branching rivers distribute their tributaries at mathematically harmonious intervals. Even his lunar studies hint at it. The apparent size of the moon, in relation to the sun during an eclipse, follows a ratio eerily close to phi, the golden number. What emerges isn't just a collection of diagrams, but a unified theory of beauty and function. For Leonardo, The golden ratio wasn't merely a tool for composing pleasing artworks, it was evidence of a deeper cosmic order. Whether sketching a flower's petals or calculating the ideal curvature of a bridge arch, he kept returning to this invisible scaffold proof that art and science, at their highest levels, are just two languages describing the same truth. The Codex Leicester preserves his most private wrestling with this idea, where pages of meticulous calculations give way to margins filled with spirals that feel almost reverent, as if he were tracing the handwriting of the universe itself. For all his brilliance, Leonardo da Vinci wasn't infallible, and the Codex Leicester preserves his missteps just as vividly as his triumphs. Take his theory about the Earth's water cycle. While he correctly understood rivers carved valleys, he believed mountains acted as giant sponges, absorbing rainwater and funneling it through hidden veins into subterranean reservoirs. He sketched elaborate diagrams of these underground channels, convinced they fed springs and rivers from below. It was an elegant idea, but fundamentally wrong. Modern hydrology shows rivers are primarily fed by surface runoff and groundwater percolation, not mythical earth veins. Leonardo's mistake stemmed from limited tools. He couldn't measure permeability or observe water's slow seepage through rock, so he filled gaps in knowledge with poetic intuition. His astronomy had similar blind spots. Despite grasping earthshine, he clung to the medieval belief that the moon's surface was polished smooth, its dark patches caused by vapors rising from lunar seas. He even proposed these seas mirrored Earth's oceans, their tides driven by the same cosmic forces. Telescope observations decades later would reveal craters and mountains, proving the moon far rougher and more alien than he imagined. These errors reveal a fascinating pattern. When Leonardo's theories relied on direct observation like water ripples or fossil layers, they were groundbreaking. But when forced to speculate beyond visible evidence, his Renaissance imagination sometimes outpaced reality. Yet his failures humanize him. The Codex shows him wrestling with contradictions, like his insistence that the sun couldn't heat the moon because space was a frigid void, a claim contradicting his own notes about reflected warmth. He later scribbled corrections in margins, admitting uncertainty. This willingness to doubt, to revise, is what set him apart from dogmatists of his era. Even his wildest ideas, like perpetual motion machines powered by unbalanced wheels, were tested through models and abandoned when they faltered. The Codex's true lesson isn't that geniuses never err, it's that their greatness lies in how they fail. Leonardo's discarded theories weren't dead ends, they were stepping stones. His sponge-like mountains inspired later hydrogeologists to study porosity. His lunar seas, though fictional, hinted at comparative planetology. Every crossed-out line in the Codex Leicester is a silent testament to courage, the courage to think boldly, question relentlessly, and let evidence, not ego, guide the way. In an age where admitting error could mean heresy charges, that was perhaps his most revolutionary act of all. Bill Gates didn't just purchase the Codex Leicester because it was rare. He saw in its pages a kindred spirit, another mind obsessed with systems, patterns, and the transformative power of ideas. To understand why a tech titan would spend $30 million on a 500-year-old notebook, you have to recognize how deeply Leonardo's approach resonated with Gates' own worldview. Both were autodidacts, men who taught themselves far beyond formal education. Both believed knowledge shouldn't be siloed, that art, science, and engineering were threads of the same fabric. And both shared a restless drive to solve grand challenges, whether it was Da Vinci sketching city plans to prevent plague or Gates tackling global health through data-driven philanthropy. The Codex, with its chaotic blend of hydraulics, astronomy, and speculative invention, wasn't a relic to Gates, it was a mirror. Microsoft's rise echoed Leonardo's ethos in surprising ways. The Codex's pages overflow with interconnected thinking, how water currents relate to air turbulence, how moon phases might inform optics. Similarly, Gates built Microsoft by seeing links between hardware, software, and human behavior that others missed. When Leonardo designed gears for his machines, he didn't just draft single components. He imagined how forces would propagate through the entire system. That's essentially what Gates did with personal computing, viewing chips, code, and interfaces as parts of an ecosystem. The Codex's marginalia, where notes on fossils bleed into bridge designs, could be a Renaissance blueprint for the cross-disciplinary agility that defined Microsoft's early culture. But Gates' ownership wasn't about symbolism, it was about access. Unlike previous collectors who treated the manuscript as a trophy, he had it meticulously scanned and released as interactive software in 1998, bundled with Windows as Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester. Suddenly, high school students could zoom in on scribbled equations, while scholars could compare digital layers of ink without handling the fragile pages. This democratization mirrored Gates' later philanthropic missions. Just as he'd argue vaccines should reach every child, he believed genius shouldn't be locked in vaults. The digitization also revealed details invisible to the naked eye, faint sketches beneath text, traces of earlier drafts, proving technology could amplify history as much as disrupt it. The choice to temporarily display the codex at museums rather than hoard it privately speaks volumes. In Florence, it was paired with touchscreens translating mirror writing in real time. In New York, projections animated Leonardo's whirlpool sketches into swirling simulations. These exhibits didn't treat the past as static. They made it conversation, proving Gates understood something profound, that the Codex's value isn't just in what it says, but in how it ignites curiosity across centuries. When a seventh grader sees Leonardo's diving suit and sketches a modern submarine, or when an engineer studies his water screws to improve irrigation in arid regions, the Codex stops being a relic and becomes a collaborator. That's the real reason a tech visionary cherished a Renaissance notebook. Not for prestige, not for investment, but because he recognized in its smudged margins the same urgency that fuels Silicon Valley today. The conviction that the right idea, shared widely enough, can bend the future. Leonardo left his discoveries scattered, unfinished. Gates, by lending them to the world, helped write the next chapters. Standing at the intersection of Renaissance curiosity and modern laboratories, Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester offers a startling case study in scientific foresight and humbling reminders of its limits. Take his geological musings. When he hypothesized that mountains might have been thrust upward by subterranean forces, he was brushing against the edges of plate tectonics, a theory formalized only in the 1960s. His sketches of layered rock formations, complete with tilted strata and fault lines, mirrored diagrams in contemporary geology textbooks. Modern researchers have even noted how his descriptions of the Earth's bones, shifting over millennia, laid a line with our understanding of continental drift. Yet for all his intuition, Leonardo lacked the tools to see the full picture. Without seismographs or satellite data, he couldn't grasp the vastness of tectonic plates or the molten engine driving them. His vision was like a candle flickering in a cavern, illuminating fragments, but not the sprawling chambers beyond. Nowhere is his prescience more striking than in fluid dynamics. His whirlpool diagrams, with their precise spiral gradients, anticipate the mathematical models used today to predict turbulence in everything from jet engines to weather systems. Computational fluid dynamicists have recreated his water flow sketches using modern software, finding eerie overlaps with his hand-drawn vectors. One 21st century study even applied his observations about river eddies to improve wastewater treatment designs. But Leonardo's brilliance hit a wall when confronted with viscosity and pressure differentials concepts requiring calculus, a math he never mastered. Where modern equations quantify drag forces or laminar flow, his notes rely on analogies, likening water to braided hair or coiling ropes. It's as if he sensed the underlying principles but lacked the vocabulary to define them. His astronomy reveals a similar pattern. The concept of earthshine, his realization that the moon's glow came from reflected sunlight bouncing off Earth's oceans, was confirmed centuries later by satellite measurements. Yet he clung to Aristotelian ideas about celestial perfection, insisting the moon's surface was polished smooth. Modern lunar probes, of course, reveal a cratered landscape shaped by violent impacts, a reality far removed from Leonardo's gleaming sphere. Even his diving suit designs, revolutionary for their time, overlooked the physics of water pressure at depth, a limitation that would take another 300 years of material science to solve. What emerges isn't just a tally of hits and misses, but a testament to how science evolves. Leonardo's greatest insights came from observing nature directly, unfiltered by dogma. When he studied river currents or fossil beds, he saw what others dismissed, but without collaborative peer review, advanced instrumentation, or the cumulative knowledge of later centuries, even his genius had blind spots. The Codex Leicester, then, is more than a historical artifact, it's a time capsule of how discovery unfolds. Each correct hypothesis celebrates human curiosity's power. Each error humbles us with reminders of how much context matters. Today's researchers, armed with quantum physics and gene sequencers, might seem light years ahead. Yet they share with Leonardo the same essential trait, the courage to stare into the unknown and sketch what they see, even if the full picture remains just out of reach. The Codex Leicester isn't just confined to museum displays and academic debates, it's leapt into the realm of pop culture, becoming a star in its own right. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code might be the most famous example, where the manuscript plays a cameo role in a web of art historical conspiracies. While the novel took creative liberties, no, Leonardo didn't hide a map to the Holy Grail in its pages. The book's success sparked a wave of public fascination, sending tourists flocking to see the real thing. Hollywood amplified the myth-making. Though the Codex itself doesn't appear in the 2006 film adaptation, its aura looms large, with references to Leonardo's forbidden knowledge, tapping into the same mystique that surrounds the actual notebook. Video games have embraced the Codex's allure even more boldly. Titles like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood let players virtually leaf through its pages, framing it as a treasure trove of Renaissance-era secrets. One puzzle-solving mobile game went further, turning its mirror writing into an actual cipher players must decode to unlock hidden blueprints for inventions. These playful reinterpretations aren't just entertainment, they're proof of how Leonardo's work continues to ignite imaginations, even if they exaggerate its role as a medieval Indiana Jones artifact. Then there are the outright myths. Online forums buzz with theories that the Codex contains everything from alchemical recipes to prophecies about future technology. One persistent legend claims a single folio, when held under moonlight, reveals a hidden sketch of a flying machine powered by celestial energy. Conservators chuckle at this. The manuscript's ink has been analyzed down to its molecular structure, and no invisible lunar ink exists. But the fact that these stories persist speaks volumes. In an age of AI and quantum computing, we still want to believe Leonardo left us puzzles to solve. Perhaps the most charming pop culture nod came from an unlikely source, a children's cartoon. In one episode, a young inventor stumbles upon a mysterious notebook that helps her build a whirlpool-powered submarine, a clear homage to the Codex's water studies. It's a reminder that Leonardo's genius isn't just for scholars or conspiracy theorists. Whether as a plot device in a thriller or inspiration for a kid's adventure, the Codex Leicester endures because it represents something universal, the thrill of discovery, the joy of connecting dots across time. The real treasure isn't some fictional code, it's the reminder that curiosity, in any era, is the most powerful tool we have. Among the swirling eddies of Leonardo da Vinci's notes in the Codex Leicester, a darker current runs, one that's fueled centuries of conspiracy theories. Some claim the manuscript holds more than scientific musings, pointing to alchemical symbols tucked between sketches of water flow. On folio 37, a series of interlocking circles and triangles resembles the cryptic diagrams found in medieval Hermetic texts, sparking speculation that Leonardo was encoding recipes for transmuting metals or even the philosopher's stone. Then there's the infamous map flap, a corner of folio 12 where the paper appears to have been deliberately folded, creating a crease that some insist outlines the coast of a lost continent or the coordinates of a hidden Templar treasure. The wildest theories venture into extraterrestrial territory, with UFO enthusiasts decoding his sketches of light refraction as blueprints for alien propulsion systems. Scholars, of course, offer more grounded explanations. Those alchemical symbols, likely geometric studies for his architectural designs, since Leonardo frequently recycled motifs across disciplines. The folded page corner, a practical adjustment perhaps to fit the sheet into a binding or protect fragile ink. As for the so-called alien technology, Historians note that Leonardo's UFO sketches match his other studies of atmospheric phenomena, like the peculiar halos sometimes seen around the moon. The Codex's project lead at the British Library once joked, if Leonardo had met an alien, he would have drawn its anatomy in triplicate, not hidden it between notes on plumbing. But here's what makes these theories so persistent. The Codex does contain genuine mysteries. Take the odd sequence on folio 55, a string of numbers and astrological signs that don't correspond to any known Renaissance cipher. Cryptographers have tried everything from Caesar shifts to Fibonacci sequences, yet the message, if there is one, remains elusive. Even mainstream academics admit some pages show signs of deliberate obfuscation, like ink smudges that align too neatly over controversial passages. The difference is that scholars see these as personal notes to self or workshop accidents, not grand conspiracies. The allure of hidden messages speaks to something deeper: our desire for Leonardo to have been not just a genius, but a keeper of forbidden knowledge. It's more thrilling to imagine him as a Renaissance-era Dan Brown protagonist than a man who sometimes doodled in the margins or spilled his inkwell. Yet there's a poetic truth in these myths. The Codex is a vault of secrets, just not the kind that involve gold-making or ancient astronauts. Its real hidden messages are about curiosity itself, how to observe without prejudice, question without fear, and let the world reveal its wonders one scribbled page at a time. Preserving the Codex Leicester is a race against time itself. 500 years of handling, oxidation, and environmental wear have turned each page into a fragile relic. Unlike modern paper made from wood pulp, Leonardo's sheets were crafted from linen rags, a stronger material but still vulnerable to the slow creep of decay. The iron gall ink he used, a common Renaissance mixture of oak galls and iron salts, has proven both a blessing and a curse. While its rich black strokes remain strikingly legible, the ink's acidic nature has eaten tiny perforations into the paper over centuries, leaving some words hovering on the edge of oblivion. Conservationists face a dilemma. Too much humidity swells the fibers, risking mold, while too little dryness makes the pages brittle as autumn leaves. Light is another silent adversary. When the Codex goes on display, museums use LED cases emitting less than 50 lux, the brightness of a moonlit night, to prevent ultraviolet rays from bleaching Leonardo's delicate sketches. Even the heat from a visitor's breath, if too close, can destabilize the ink's chemical bonds. During its rare exhibitions, the manuscript lies open to just one spread at a time, rotated every few weeks to minimize exposure. The rest remains in a climate-controlled vault filled with inert argon gas, slowing oxidation to a crawl. But the greatest threat might be the very act of study. Every touch, even with gloved hands, risks abrading the paper's surface. To solve this, conservators employ non-invasive tech like multispectral imaging, which uses different light wavelengths to reveal faded text without contact. One breakthrough came in 2019, when researchers deployed a technique called hyperspectral imaging to uncover hidden under drawings beneath Leonardo's notes layers of thought even he might have forgotten. These digital tools don't just preserve, they resurrect, letting us see the Codex as it looked when fresh ink still gleamed on its pages. Yet some damage tells its own story. The faint stains near folio 63, for instance, analyzed as red wine hint at a long now scholar's midnight study session. The crease along the lower edge of folio 28 matches where patterns from being carried in a saddlebag, likely during its 18th century travels between English estates. These imperfections are more than flaws. They're a historical record of the Codex's journey, proof that great ideas demand not just creation, but guardianship across generations. The challenge isn't just about halting decay, it's about honoring the manuscript's dual role as artifact and oracle. Too much intervention risks sterilizing its lived history. Too little could mean losing Leonardo's voice entirely. Modern conservators walk this tightrope with reverence, knowing their work ensures that 500 years from now, someone else might still trace the same Inkai spirals of a mind that saw the future in a drop of water. The Codex Leicester has graced some of the world's most prestigious museums, each exhibition offering a fleeting chance to stand inches from Leonardo's genius. Florence's Uffizi Gallery, a stone's throw from where Da Vinci honed his craft, hosted the manuscript in 2019 as part of a blockbuster show marking 500 years since his death. Visitors lined up for hours to glimpse its pages under dim, protective lighting, displayed alongside anatomical studies and early sketches of the Mona Lisa, a homecoming of sorts for the notebook. Across the Atlantic, the American Museum of Natural History in New York took a different approach, integrating the Codex into an exhibit on Renaissance science, where Leonardo's water studies were juxtaposed with modern fluid dynamics simulations. These displays aren't just celebrations of art, they're cross-disciplinary dialogues, proving the manuscript's relevance spans far beyond historical curiosity. Yet the Codex's public appearances remain frustratingly rare, averaging just one major exhibition every 5 to 7 years. Since Bill Gates acquired it in 1994, the manuscript has been loaned to institutions fewer than a dozen times, a pace that sparks debate among scholars and accessibility advocates. On one side, conservators argue that strict limitations are necessary. Each exposure to light, humidity fluctuations, or vibrations during transport accelerates the aging of its 500-year-old pages. This isn't just a book, it's a fragile ecosystem of ink and linen, explains a curator at the British Library, where the Codex underwent its most recent preservation assessment. Even the oils from a visitor's breath, over time, can alter the chemistry of the paper. Critics, however, counter that such restrictions create an elitist dynamic, where only a privileged few in select cities can experience the manuscript firsthand. They point to the success of the Vatican's digitized archives or the British Museum's online collections as proof that technology could bridge the gap. Imagine interactive VR exhibits where anyone, anywhere, could turn the Codex's pages in 3 dimensions, suggests an open access advocate. Gates himself has championed digital access, funding high-resolution scans and augmented reality apps that let users explore the notebook's intricacies. But for many, pixels can't replicate the awe of confronting Leonardo's actual handiwork, the faint smell of ancient paper, the tactile evidence of his quill pressing into the page. The tension between preservation and access isn't unique to the Codex, but it's amplified by its dual identity as both cultural treasure and scientific artifact. When the Louvre temporarily displayed it alongside the Mona Lisa, crowds surged, proving its power to draw audiences. Yet when the Art Institute of Chicago proposed hosting it alongside Renaissance engineering models, the loan was declined, reportedly due to concerns about Midwest humidity. Such decisions fuel accusations that the manuscript has become a billionaire's heirloom, its global impact secondary to private stewardship. Perhaps the solution lies in reimagining what accessibility means. Limited but strategic exhibitions paired with immersive digital proxies could democratize the experience without sacrificing conservation. The Uphizzi's approach offers a model. During its display, the museum hosted live-streamed workshops where conservators explained the Codex's fragility, turning restrictions into teachable moments. Meanwhile, schools in Nairobi and Mumbai access 3-dimensional scans through Gates' educational platforms, proving that inspiration needn't be confined by geography. The debate ultimately circles back to Leonardo's own ethos. He scribbled in the Codex not for princes or popes, but for the sheer joy of shared discovery. Whether its future lies behind glass or on screens, the goal remains the same: to keep those sparks of curiosity alive, one generation at a time. Digital explorations have transformed how we interact with fragile relics like the Codex Leicester, turning what was once a privilege for elite scholars into an experience anyone with a smartphone can access. High-resolution, 3-dimensional scans now reveal details invisible to the naked eye: faint pencil underdrawings beneath ink, subtle textures of the linen paper, even the pressure of Leonardo's quill as it carved words into the page. The digital version funded by Bill Gates doesn't just replicate the manuscript, it enhances it, allowing users to zoom in until individual fibers of the paper resemble canyon walls, or flip the mirror writing with a tap, eliminating the need for an actual looking glass. This isn't just preservation, it's resurrection, giving the Codex a second life as an interactive classroom where annotations pop up to explain archaic terms or link sketches to modern scientific principles. The real revolution lies in accessibility. For centuries, Studying the Codex required connections to aristocrats or institutions, relegating its insights to a select few. Now, apps like Codex Leicester let a student in Mumbai examine lunar diagrams alongside a retiree in Oslo, both tracing the same curves Leonardo drew 500 years ago. Digital tools have also crowdsourced discoveries. Armchair historians comparing scans have spotted overlooked marginalia, like a tiny sketch of a gear system that anticipates modern clock mechanics. Museums amplify this effect, projecting augmented reality overlays during exhibitions so visitors can watch Leonardo's whirlpool sketches animate into swirling simulations, or toggle between his handwriting and typed translations in real time. Yet these advancements spark debates. Purists argue that no screen can capture the aura of standing before the actual manuscript, the way light glints off oxidized ink, or the faint woody scent of aging paper that whispers of its journey through time. Others counter that democratization matters more. When Gates released the Codex as a Windows screensaver in the 90s, he didn't diminish its value. He multiplied its reach, inspiring a generation of engineers who might never set foot in the Uffizi. The digital and physical realms aren't rivals but collaborators, each offering unique ways to commune with genius. What's often overlooked is how these tools honor Leonardo's own ethos. He filled the Codex with sketches meant to be handled, tested, and improved, not locked away. Interactive apps embody that spirit, turning passive observation into active engagement. A teenager tweaking parameters in a virtual model of his water screw isn't just learning hydraulics. She's collaborating across centuries, proving that the truest preservation isn't about sealing the past away, but letting it flow into the future. Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester didn't vanish into obscurity after his death. It became a silent mentor to generations of thinkers who shaped the modern world. Take Galileo Galilei, who, a century later, would revolutionize astronomy with his telescopic observations. While there's no evidence Galileo held the Codex, his notebooks reveal striking parallels, meticulous records of lunar phases, sketches of water vortices, even similar mirror writing. Some scholars argue this isn't coincidence, but proof of a shared intellectual lineage, the Renaissance habit of circulating handwritten tracts among savants. Galileo, like Leonardo, saw nature as a puzzle to be decoded through observation rather than dogma, a radical shift the Codex epitomized decades earlier. The manuscript's fingerprints grow clearer in the work of 17th-century geologists like Nicolaus Steno. When Steno proposed that rock layers formed sequentially over vast time, the foundation of stratigraphy, his diagrams bore an uncanny resemblance to Leonardo's sketches of sedimentary deposits in the Codex. Both men studied the Arno River Valley, both questioned why fossils appeared on mountaintops, and both faced accusations of heresy for challenging biblical chronologies. Steno's breakthrough built on the very questions Leonardo dared to ask, proving the Codex wasn't just a curiosity but a catalyst. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, and you'll find engineers like Isambard Kingdom Brunel poring over reproductions of Leonardo's hydraulic pumps, adapting his principles for steam-powered systems. Modern fluid dynamicists still reference the Codex's whirlpool studies when modeling turbulence in pipelines or aerodynamics. NASA engineers have even cited his notes on reflected light when designing lunar landers, proving that Renaissance intuition can still inform space-age innovation. Yet the Codex's true legacy lies beyond specific inventions. It embodies a way of thinking, one that refuses to separate art from science, curiosity from rigor. When 18th-century naturalists like Alexander von Humboldt mapped ecosystems, they mirrored Leonardo's holistic approach, seeing rivers as both sculptors of landscapes and arteries of life. Today's climate scientists, tracing feedback loops between oceans and atmosphere, echo his vision of nature as an interconnected machine. The debate isn't whether the Codex was ahead of its time, but whether the time ever truly caught up. Every era rediscovers Leonardo through its own lens. Enlightenment scholars praised his empiricism, Victorian engineers admired his mechanics, and now AI researchers analyze his notebooks for patterns mimicking neural networks. The Codex endures not because it predicted the future, but because it reminds us how to think freely, fearlessly, across all boundaries. In that sense, Leonardo's greatest invention wasn't a device or theory. but a template for the unfettered mind. Even the most carefully preserved historical treasures hold tantalizing gaps, and the Codex Leicester is no exception. Between its 72 surviving pages lie missing folios, voids that whisper of secrets lost to time. Some gaps appear innocuous, like natural wear from centuries of handling. Others raise eyebrows, precisely excised sections where the stitching suggests pages were deliberately removed. The mystery deepens when tracking the manuscript's inventories over 500 years. An 18th century catalogue from the Earl of Leicester's library references 312 leaves, matching today's count, but earlier records tell a different story. A Venetian bookseller's log from the 1600s mentions a notebook of Da Vinci, 4 quires thick, implying at least 80 pages originally existed. So where did those extra sheets go? Theories abound. Some scholars point to the Codex's tumultuous journey. Its pages could have been lost when Napoleon's troops looted Italian collections, or perhaps sold off separately by cash-strapped heirs. There's precedent for this. Other Renaissance manuscripts were dismembered by dealers who prized individual sketches over intact volumes, but darker possibilities linger. On folio 20, a jagged edge suggests a knife's work, not accidental damage. Infrared scans reveal faint pen marks along the cut numbers or symbols that might have been censored. This wasn't uncommon in eras when heretical ideas could endanger owners. Leonardo's geological theories alone, which contradicted biblical creation timelines, might have prompted a cautious collector to prune risky content. The most intriguing clue comes from an unexpected source. A letter tucked into a 16 CENTURY Chinese letter text. A Medici librarian writes of receiving certain folios of the Florentine master's hydraulics for private study, never returned. Could these be the missing pages? The timing aligns with gaps in the Codex's provenance, but without the original inventory numbers, it's impossible to confirm. Modern technology offers flickers of hope. When the Codex underwent multispectral imaging in 2019, conservators detected traces of ink on adjacent folios, ghost texts, from text that once pressed against removed sheets. These spectral imprints include partial sketches of a curved lens apparatus and a cryptic note about the eye's deception, fueling speculation that the lost pages contained optical experiments too radical for their time. What makes these absences so haunting isn't just what they hide, but why they matter. Leonardo rarely worked in isolation. Ideas seated in one notebook often bloomed fully in others. A missing diagram of water vortices here might explain an enigmatic propulsion sketch in the Codex Atlanticus. A torn-out note on lunar light could bridge his astronomy studies to later telescopic designs. Every gap is a broken thread in what should have been a continuous tapestry of thought. Perhaps the greatest testament to the Codex's power is how fiercely we still hunt for its missing pieces, as if somewhere, in some forgotten archive, those lost folios wait to rewrite history once more. What if artificial intelligence could crack the Codex Leicester's lingering mysteries, revealing patterns even Leonardo's contemporaries missed? The same machine learning algorithms that predict weather or diagnose diseases are now being trained on Da Vinci's notebooks, hunting for hidden connections between his sprawling ideas. One ambitious project at Stanford University feeds high-resolution scans of the Codex into neural networks designed to detect subtle correlations like how often sketches of water vortices appear near notes on celestial mechanics, or whether his mirror writing shifts to standard script when discussing controversial topics. Early results suggest previously overlooked clusters, such as repeated geometric ratios in both river diagrams and facial sketches, hinting at a unified theory of proportion he never explicitly stated. Other teams are tackling the manuscript's physical gaps. Researchers at MIT developed an algorithm that cross-references ink chemistry, pen pressure, and word frequency across Leonardo's known works to predict what might have filled the Codex's missing folios. By analyzing the ghost texts left on adjacent pages, they've generated probabilistic reconstructions like a proposed section on underwater optics, inferred from smudged references to light bending through waves near torn edges. The most startling breakthrough came last year, when a Berlin-based lab used generative AI to virtually unfold crumpled corners of folio 12, revealing faint charcoal underdrawings of a multi-lens device resembling a protomicroscope. But AI's greatest contribution might be linguistic. Da Vinci's mirrored script, combined with archaic Tuscan dialects and his personal shorthand, creates a formidable translation challenge. Google's Cultural Institute teamed with medieval linguists to train a model on 5,000 pages of Renaissance technical manuscripts, enabling it to not only flip Leonardo's writing, but also suggest context-based interpretations for ambiguous terms. For instance, his word area, previously translated uniformly as air, is now recognized as having three distinct meanings depending on placement: atmospheric air, musical harmony, or even a synonym for essence in alchemical contexts. This nuance reshapes how we read his notes on fluid dynamics, where he describes water moving con dulce area with sweet harmony, implying he saw physics and aesthetics as intertwined. Yet these tools aren't without controversy. Some historians warn that AI risks overfitting, imposing modern biases onto Renaissance thinking by assuming patterns Leonardo never intended. When an algorithm flagged a series of dots near lunar sketches as a possible star map, subsequent analysis showed they were likely ink blots. Others counter that AI serves best as a collaborative tool, flagging anomalies for human experts to vet. The British Library's recent Leonardo Machine project strikes this balance, using AI to surface overlooked marginalia, like a tiny sketch of a chain drive hidden beneath a waterfall study, which conservators then confirmed matches a pulley design in the Codex Madrid. The true promise lies in synthesis. By mapping connections across all 32 surviving Da Vinci notebooks, machine learning could reconstruct his thought process in ways isolated scholars never could, revealing how a diving suit design from 1487 might have inspired hydraulic pumps, sketched a decade later in the Codex Leicester. Like threading scattered beads onto a string, AI helps assemble the fragments of a mind that saw no divide between art and engineering, between the flow of rivers and the dance of planets. And perhaps that's the most revealing discovery of all. Not just what Leonardo wrote, but how he thought, offering not solutions but a blueprint for curiosity itself. Standing before the Codex Leicester in a climate-controlled display case, scholars and casual viewers alike often freeze not just from the chill of preservation, but from the sheer weight of history in their gaze. For researchers, it's a moment of exhilarating frustration. Dr. Elisabetta Gnudi, a Renaissance specialist from the University of Bologna, recalls her first encounter. "I'd spent years studying transcriptions, but seeing the actual mirror writing, the way his quill dug into the linen, it felt like Leonardo was daring me to solve a puzzle." Then came the heartbreak, realizing entire passages are so context-dependent, even fluent Italian speakers struggle. His shorthand for water changes 3 times in one paragraph. This tension between intimacy and inscrutability defines the academic experience. Paleographers obsess over tiny ink blots that might be smudges or coded symbols, while art historians debate whether a margin sketch of a twisted rope is a study for a painting or a prototype for a pulley system. The public, however, reacts with unfiltered wonder. During a rare exhibition at the Seattle Art Museum, a teenage visitor named Javier Torres described the codex as like seeing a superhero's blueprint. He wasn't just painting ladies, he was inventing the future. His mother, a middle school science teacher, was struck by how accessible the diagrams felt. The whirlpool sketches, you could show those to my students tomorrow, they'd instantly get the physics. Yet even here, the manuscript's duality emerges. Some visitors confess disappointment when they realize they can't read a single word without a mirror or translation app. "I expected it to look more finished," admitted one gallery goer, pointing to a half-erased lunar diagram. But then the docent explained that's what makes it special. It's not a textbook. It's his brain spilled onto paper. The divide isn't just about expertise. It's about expectation. Academics like Dr. Gnudi crave systematic clarity, groaning when Leonardo jumps from geology to gear ratios without warning. Meanwhile, the public often revels in those very leaps, seeing them as proof of boundless creativity. At London's Victoria and Albert Museum, a retired engineer named Margaret Chen found unexpected kinship with the Codex's chaos. My workshop notebooks look the same ideas piled on top of each other. Genius isn't tidy. This contrast reveals the Codex's true magic. It's a mirror reflecting back what each viewer brings to it. Scholars dissect its structure, artists marvel at its flow, engineers reverse engineer its sketches. And somewhere in that collision of perspectives, Leonardo still whispers not just through the words we decode, but through the ones we're still straining to hear. The Codex Leicester stands as both a beacon of human brilliance and an enduring enigma, a testament to Leonardo da Vinci's mind, where scientific rigor and boundless imagination collided. Within these 72 pages, we've traced whirlpools that predate fluid dynamics, unearthed geological theories that shattered medieval dogma, and marveled at lunar diagrams that hinted at cosmic truths far beyond his era. Yet for every insight decoded, another slips just out of reach, hidden beneath mirror writing, ink smudges, or the tantalizing gaps of missing folios. This is the essence of Leonardo's genius, not just what he left behind, but what he deliberately, or perhaps accidentally, concealed. The Codex doesn't merely document discoveries, it invites us into a conversation across centuries. When modern engineers build turbines inspired by his water screws, or astronomers cite his earthshine theory, we're not just honoring history, we're collaborating with it. But the manuscript's true power lies in its unanswered questions. Why did he scratch out those notes on subterranean fires? What vanished from the deliberately excised pages? And perhaps most haunting of all, how much of his vision remains locked in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to piece it together? For all our advancements, we may never fully grasp the depths of Leonardo's mind. Was he a man of his time, constrained by the tools and taboos of the Renaissance, or a singular intellect who saw further than any before him? The Codex offers no easy verdict. Instead, it challenges us to keep looking, testing, and questioning just as he did. Now, the journey turns to you. Thanks to digitization efforts, those same Inkai spirals and cryptic margins are just a click away. Flip through high-resolution scans, decode mirrored script with a tap, or dive into augmented reality exhibits that animate his sketches. And when you spot something unexpected, a hidden doodle, a puzzling equation, a connection no one's made before, share it. The comments below could be the next frontier of this 500-year-old debate. After all, the Codex Leicester wasn't meant to be a relic. It was a workshop, a lab, a battleground of ideas. And in your hands, it's